to ensure that this effort is not being frustrated by the selfish style of Nigerian, our business persons and all of that. I have no doubt that indeed, before the end of the year, if we are going at the pace in which the administration is going, we are going to fight this issue of inflation to a standstill.
So, looking at what the president and the governors have said in that meeting, and you are optimistic that the economy will boost by the end of the year, but is the dollar the only parameter we'll use to judge this administration? What about other aspects in security, infrastructure development, amongst others? Have we really done well? Are we seeing the governors, the legislatures, and the federal government working together to ensure that the people get the dividends of democracy that they've not gotten in a long time?
Well, the truth of it is that we've not gotten there. But like I will say again, I will give the government a very pass mark. Day in, day out, in terms of infrastructural development, you can see that a lot of improvement and approval here and there. As of this morning, I still passed through Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, talking about the Tomiland Bridge. And in fact, we have the Calabar Coastal, Lagos
Coastal Highway.
Coastal Highway. Even though that is coming with its own issues, controversies, and all of that. One thing you cannot take away is the fact that the importance of having such an infrastructure at this point is going to go a long way in boosting the economy. It's going to go a long way. It's indeed dividend of democracy. So I would say that you have mentioned the issue of security. Yes, the security issue is still very much around with us. And I must say that the issue of security, particularly issue of kidnapping and all of that, we are becoming worn out as a country. It's no longer making news. It's highly underreported. Now, as of last week, I'm still aware of a family that were kidnapped along Kogi, Okene Highway. And I was just telling a friend, I said, it no longer make any news to us. We don't see this as a driver was killed along the line. Why is it that this is no longer making news? But whatever you want to look at, whichever way you want to look at it, I've said it on this platform before. We've moved from one stage of the challenges to the other, particularly as it relates to security. Now, the issue of Boko Haram attack, where we used to have bomb being detonated and all of that, has completely gone down, subsided. So, but we still have slim issue of security all around, and that has taken over everywhere in the country. So the challenge of security remains with us. But I must say commendably that the government, the current administration is doing its best. But we encourage them to do more. What we now have that is back within us in the country, in the area of security, the recent attack, we have one in Okwama and all of that, where military persons, these things happens daily. And I can tell you that maybe the issue of security in the Northeast was more reported, that we have significantly forgotten that these slight security issues remain with us. I will still give a pass mark to the government, whichever way you want to look at this all again.
Less than 1 year into the administration.
Less than 1 year.
Is it not early to give a pass mark?
Well,
it's even, can we even say it's less than 1 year? Because this time in May, we'll be talking about the first year administration.
Well, government administration
the first year of the administration.
Government administration
is a continuum.
Is a continuum, particularly when it comes to area of security.
Okay.
We are not trying to, like I've said, you see, we were able to overcome certain security challenges in the past administration. If we are going to look at the administration of Goodluck Jonathan into that of Buhari, our peculiar security, our security challenges at that point were very, very peculiar. I've mentioned earlier on the issue of Boko Haram, bomb attack, and all of that. But what we have under Buhari had a different tone. When you are talking about kidnapping in the time past, you are only looking at maybe Niger Delta and all of that. But this thing seems to now spread more to the north and even southwest. So what I see is that at every point or at every administration, there's always this peculiarity, security challenges. And like I was saying, look at it, when last did you hear about army officers being killed? If not in the northeast, particularly in the Niger Delta. But look at the gruesome manner in which our military men were murdered in Delta State. So I'm just saying this to the administration, to the current dispensation or administration, to take note that there is a peculiarity that is coming up.
Which is what?
Which is, I've mentioned it, like I've mentioned, like the area of the military persons be attacked. Okay,
so that is one area.
It's one area before you know.
That is peculiar. To this administration.
Before you know, it's peculiar to this administration. Like, from my understanding, from my view of the administration, before you know, this will be. We pray we don't have a situation at hand that it becomes a star. It becomes another another peculiar security issue that we begin to have.
How is this? Sorry, how is this peculiar when in less than 1 year we've only had, correct me if I'm wrong,
yes,
one situation, and that's in Okwama. How is it peculiar to this administration?
Well, it's peculiar to the administration. Like I wouldn't want to. I'm aware that investigation is still very, very much ongoing, and I wouldn't, at the risk of not sounding too affirmative about certain things, there are controversies that surrounded the issue of Okwama. Initially, what we got to know is that military persons were going into Okwama to restore peace and the rest. But subsequently, either true or false, we begin to hear that issue of oil bunkering is actually the issue between the community, certain persons in the community, and the military. Some were even saying that it's a land dispute between two communities because of concentration of oil facility or whatever in a particular community. And certain persons, influential or influential persons in this community, are now making use of the military to intimidate. These are very sensitive issues that the government must go beyond, looking at how military officers were murdered. They must be able to unravel. That's why I said it's a peculiar situation, particularly from the Niger Delta, where we have our oil.
All right. Let's also go back to your point. You made a brief point about, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. And, the government has said it's going to be an 8-year project that will gulp trillions of naira, 15 trillion at the least, which has also sparked, reactions in across, many divides, especially from the opposition, the PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, saying that this equals the budget of, all the states of the federation, including the FCT. How do you justify that, as well as, the mode of bidding, if at all? As a lawyer, and an analyst and a keen observer to, all that's happening in this before and during this administration, how do you see these controversies?
The issue being raised, the controversy being raised, and the issue being raised by the opposition party, particularly PDP. And I think I saw a letter by our very revered Duarte over the weekend as well. It constitutes a very big burden to the current administration, particularly when same is being leaked to the Shagori brothers of France and all of that. Then particularly the area of the bidding, talking about Public Procurement Act, how the bidding was done, not being advertised, just is a big burden to the administration. As fantastic, as interesting, as relevant as that project might be to Nigeria, I will advise the current dispensation that they must not leave those issues unaddressed. That is going to constitute a burden. We are talking about trillions of naira here. I've expected more from the administration, but I want to believe maybe in the coming days or coming week, they are going to come up with they need to be very, very accountable to Nigerians. When such fund is going to be invested in a project, so as important as that project might be, the issue being raised by opposition party, Batiku, Abubakar, and other opposition party members, is so germane and constitute a burden which the current administration must do all within its reach to clear. If not so, it's going to cast doubts on every, and we are talking about 8 years project. That's, give and take, when you say a project of that nature is for 8 years, that means tentatively it might even outrun the current administration. So they must do all within their district to come clean and correct whatever it is that looks like an anomaly or abnormalities in regards to that project. It's a very fantastic project. It's a very progressive one. It's a very innovative one for that matter. However, the issue being raised by the opposition is key. And that is the kind of opposition, that is the kind of prayer we expect from an opposition. Yes.
Okay, so let me take you up on this issue. You talked about government being a continuum, and you mentioned especially in terms of insecurity. So yesterday marks the 10-year anniversary or commemoration of the abduction of the Chibok Girls, and of course about 91 of them are still in captivity. Are we just paying lip service to the pledge to get those girls released, or do you see anything concrete being done?
Well, thank God you mentioned government being continuum.
You mentioned it earlier. So
yes, thank God you referred me back to government being continuum. The issue of students or people being kidnapped, even in the current administration, we still have it very much around with us. I can tell that we've had like 2 instances, the one of Kaduna and I think one is Zamfara that I can still recall. And the closest to us here in Lagos, the one for Ekiti. But why, when I was talking about peculiarity of security challenges of the government, basically let's put it at Fourth Republic, when I was talking about the challenges, I deliberately did not mention that. Because for the one of Kaduna, we are pleased to note that those girls were rescued or released.
Yes.
The students were rescued or released. Talking about the one of Ekiti, we are pleased to note that these students were released. So the one of Chibok, I'm going to say is being inherited by this government. And I think from what has happened so far.
It was inherited by the last government.
It was inherited by the last
8
government.
years.
And same, it's better into this
From
government.
the Jonathan government to the Buhari government, now to this government.
So I think it would be fair to say that if it had happened under this administration, with the assistance of the one of Kaduna, the one of Zamfara, the one of Ekiti, those students will have all been rescued. And
okay, if that's happened back then,
yes.
and but nothing happened, or maybe over 9 years, we had students who were escaping and all of that. What is stopping this administration from putting mechanisms in place to get them released?
Without sounding pessimistic, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a security expert.
I understand so.
I think yes, I know, I'm going somewhere. I think it is logical to conclude at this point that the 91 that you are still talking about, for those that have been, for those that I want to believe, I'm not sounding pessimistic, for those that are still very much alive, I believe they must have taken a new leaf. You know the way these terrorists operate. I doubt if what you are going to have currently is the same student of Chibok who were kidnapped. I want to believe that you now have mothers.
Absolutely.
I want to believe
that's pretty obvious that so these are women.
Who do you think were those suicide bombers that we were having in the past administration? Definitely. I don't know, like I've said, I'm not saying this with any authority, but from my own logical reasoning, I want to believe that majority of those suicide bomber, detonating bomb on themselves, were these girls in question, or were these students in question. So, as of today, we are talking of about 9 years ago. 10 years, the Chibok, we are no longer having Chibok girls, from my own view. We are having wives of terrorists. And
through no fault of theirs. We can't even call them wives in the sense of it, because where is the consent? And you know, all of those elements.
But I'm scared that these students that we are talking about, these persons we are talking about, 10 years is a long time in the life of the student we are talking about. Must have must have acclimatized with whatever is going on there. That's why I think it becomes more difficult for us, if we must be realistic, to think about rescue at this point.
All right, but of course there is still you know, hope that you know, these girls or these captives will be released soon. Of course, you've just raised the bigger question of rehabilitation and reintegration into the society, but they remain captives. But let's quickly talk about, we don't have time again, let's quickly look at some of the major policies of government, the removal of subsidies, electricity subsidies somewhat, fuel subsidy somewhat. IMF is pleased, but many Nigerians aren't. NLC is also talking about it now, and you know, other sectors are also speaking. Manufacturers are speaking about the effect and how well the government consulted with these critical bodies, and how much is on ground to buffer the harsh effects of these removals.
Well, one of the greatest burden of this administration is the fact that the only time